Welcome in everybody to another episode of ZB's Horsepower Talk. As always, I am ZB Zack Brown. NASCAR had a bunch of action down in Southern California at Fontana at Auto Club Speedway for the very last time on the 2-mile configuration there. Crazy snow happened and a bunch of rain and some crazy racing happened out there. Lincoln Speedway gets going for their Icebreaker races on Thursday and on Sunday. How will things shake up there with the PA Posse kicking things off at that speedway? We're about to find out. So we're just going to start with the big race that the NASCAR had at Fontana. We'll work our way to the smaller tracks that happened and get into a little bit of dirt racing at Lincoln Speedway that happened in Pennsylvania with the PA Posse opening up there. Obviously, everybody knows by now that Kyle Busch, Rowdy, comes away with the win at Fontana for the last time on that 2-mile configuration. It was a very good race. A lot of action happened there. This is what happens when you have a car that NASCAR has put together, and it's kind of equalized a lot of the competition. You're gonna have a lot of close races here, and I think that's what their idea was. But it also comes down to how to handle strategy through these races, with especially with this track with the tires. You got over a 20-something year surface, so it was pretty rough on the tires. Obviously, early on, Kyle Larson had the electrical issues going with the car. Thought it was blowing up at first, but they were able to pretty much replace everything in the electrical system. At least got that car up to speed, and they surprisingly only went 17 laps down. I think they ended up with either 16 or 15 laps down, and they finished the race. So impressive work by them. Still some shitty luck for Larson and that crew to start off with, but get it out of the way early, and hopefully, you've got 34 more races to go, so hopefully the luck will start turning for them. But it opens up. Chastain was fast early on. Actually, both Trackhouse cars were pretty fast. Suarez continues to improve and impress on these tracks, and this was a big race for him too. So he was definitely racing it pretty hard, with a lot of fans that came to see him down there in Southern Cali. Conditions were very cold, surprisingly, so that definitely shook things up. The engines are cold. They didn't have any practice from all the rain and crappy weather they had there, and it showed early on. Like I said with Larson, that's a big issue that they would have caught on early in practice, and it probably wouldn't have happened in the race. They would have had a whole new system put in before the race. Probably started at the back, but that car was still damn fast. They probably would have made up ground for it if they were on the lead lap. But with a little bit of everything, everybody was having some sort of issues going on early. Obviously, it kept a lot of the bigger names improved on the car, worked on it, and ended up with good runs. Again, Chastain comes out on top with the first two stages, and one of the restarts though everybody's talking about. And no one's really sure how it started. It might have started with Logano on the front row, and it was one on the front rows, and it was a chain reaction that he didn't go. He actually was the leader. He was a control car. That's the advantage of being the control car. You can kind of start whenever you want, and it stopped everybody up. Everybody anticipated going. One thing led to another, big chain reaction. A bunch of people ended up getting in a big wreck on that restart, taking out a bunch of good possible contenders too. Some that probably expected to wreck anyways in that race. But that definitely was interesting early. Cautions happened enough where strategy started playing out. You were going to be able to make it to the end, especially with tires as much as they're wearing out. You're falling off 3 seconds a lap on, I think, at least 20 lap or older tires as compared to the ones with the newer tires. So a lot of people tried strategies. but it just didn't. It just didn't work out that way. Let's talk about Kyle Busch. He had the speeding penalty early, and I mean he does have a lot of those. But if it happens early on a race, he almost always ends up making up for it. It's like he keeps running it harder and harder, and he knows he screwed up. Wants to make up for it for his team, and he did. Came down to really him and Chastain. I thought Harvick had a chance for a little while, but he kind of fell off towards the end of the race. Still had a good, solid finish, but Chastain and Kyle Busch were running just extremely hard, and Kyle was actually a lot more patient than I thought he would be. Chastain ran him up the track a few times, made it difficult to pass and everything. Kyle was patient with it, kept the car clean, and ended up just getting the lead and never looking back. And I've said this, I'm 1 week late on my pick, so that's how this is going this year. 0 for 2 for the picks. The pick I had this one finished 30th and a few laps down, so let's not let's not worry about that. And we'll get to my picks coming up for Vegas later on. But Kyle gets his 19th straight season with a win. I mean, no one's really shocked that he won. I'm not. But coming this early, I think a lot of people didn't expect that. But I'm pretty sure I'm one of the people that's like, you give Kyle, and I said this earlier, you give Kyle a fresh start, and it's like a lot of people change of scenery is a good thing, and he's coming out with a vengeance. I feel like, and he's not going to say it, but I feel like he was thinking he was pushed out of Joe Gibbs, and they were kind of tired of dealing with his crap. And I think the feeling was mutual, really. And him getting back into a Chevy and really elevating that program RCR's got. I've said this, he's brought a lot of positive energy and championship mentality to that. And it's just like what you do with any superstar that goes anywhere you can think of. I put him in my Final Four for a reason. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a hell of a race car driver, one of the best race car drivers ever. And a bunch of people spoke out on it. Larson and Chase Elliott both, I mean, they were saying, it's not surprising that he won. He's pretty freaking good at racing. But having this early, watch out. It's I feel like he's going to go on a tear now. And I tweeted about this and everything. If he gets to a hot streak right now, it might be a long season for the rest of NASCAR. And the crazy thing is, since he's moved to a whole new program, into a Chevy, running for Richard Childress, he had tons of freaking cheers when he won. Nobody ever heard that. You don't hear that. You hear a couple cheers for Kyle. It's never been overwhelming cheers. So I think getting away from Joe Gibbs, that there's not a whole... The fans aren't as backing of Joe Gibbs, I guess you could say. A lot of fans... there are a lot of Chevy fans, and there's a lot of old Earnhardt fans and Earnhardt Jr. fans that like the 8 car. Some of the people don't even realize there's a different driver in there. They're probably still about 20 Budweisers deep, watching every single NASCAR race and thinking the 8's the same person. But just the following that RCR has, and what everybody knows that Kyle's been through this past year, and they're very uncertain if he was even going to race or not. And coming out there and just getting that win, that's shoot, I found myself rooting for him, and I've never liked Kyle Busch, so it's pretty crazy. I think a lot of people are feeling the same way. They're like, what the hell's going on with my mind? But, I mean, you got to give respect where respect's due. It's it's going to be a long season for some of the competitors. I just wait and see. But again, Rowdy wins there in California. And even Austin Dillon ended up top 10 there. I think he got ninth. So that was still pretty impressive with him. So you just see the game elevating for everyone. And they're only all going to get better. Going into the Xfinity race, it's kind of weird. They raced after the Cup race. Usually they would move it to the morning time or whatever that time slot would be right before the Cup race. But no, NASCAR decided to race it afterwards to make sure nobody tuned in. Obviously, it was delayed for the rain, snow, everything. It was just terrible weather. Another negative to move out to California. Cole Custer ends up winning the first two stages. You think he's got a shot to? It was kind of going the way Chastain's race was going, a lot dominating first two stages. One thing I really want to touch on in that race that really stuck out to me, if anybody even watched it, or if you're not, go back and watch this. This is really impressive driving. Sheldon Creed got turned by Josh Berry off of turn 2, and that thing was making a beeline right to the inside wall. And it was going to be one of those really hard hits that goes on the inside wall. He was able to drive that thing full throttle, kept it in fourth gear, and just kept it rolling. He was fighting it, and he just tapped the wall with the rear of the car. Minimum damage, and he ended up taking the lead later on. So, I mean, he could have been in the infield care center for a hot minute. Ended up racing very well throughout the whole race. So that was impressive driving by him. And I don't think it was anything intentional by Josh Berry. Sheldon Creed went for the block, and it was misjudgment on everybody. So if anybody was kind of complaining about either one of those, I think it was just kind of one of those racing deals. But at the end, John Hunter Nemechek in the Joe Gibbs 20 car, that thing was it was bad fast. And my pick had a chance. Sam Mayer had a chance. Didn't look good early on, but his car came to life. After the sun went down, the track was getting really cool, but not enough. John Hunter had it in the bags. But there's some good racing in California for this last big 2-mile configuration before they redo everything to make it a short track, and it's not going to happen next year, they said, so it's going to take a couple years to be ready. So it'll be interesting what NASCAR decides to do. I'm pretty sure they're going to lean to racing the Coliseum out there as part of their West Coast swing next year, so probably look out for that. Hopefully they'll just move the Clash back to Daytona, and then the Coliseum can just be part of the West Coast swing. Some sort of consolation, I guess, to get it back down to Daytona. But I think it's definitely impressive the way the drivers went out there and kind of gave it one last hurrah, showing that the racetrack is very capable of putting on good shows. NASCAR thinks they can only put on good shows with the short tracks. And I mean, I love short track racing too, but lately these races, especially with the great talent that's been coming in to NASCAR the last few years, it's you can pretty much race anywhere. There'll be a hell of races. So there's not going to be anybody that takes a 25-second lead and it's just a snooze fest the whole time. It's going to be a lot of back and forth on a lot of these races. And I don't know. I'm not. I mean, I don't care for the California races if I were to go to it, but I mean, watching it and putting on a good show, especially when they have a surface like this, the original surface, puts on tire wear, puts a little bit of strategy in. It's still pretty interesting. Now you're gonna have a brand new racetrack with brand new asphalt. It's a short track. Nobody's gonna know what to do. I don't know. We'll see how they design it and stuff, but I'm not too optimistic about it. I don't think I've ever been the one that would say, "Hey, let's just keep racing at the same track in California." So if that's coming from me, that means a lot. Well, let's move on. Talk about the Icebreaker races in Lincoln Speedway for the 410 sprint cars and PA Posse. Like I said, I'm going to cover a lot of PA Posse races. Just a homer with that. Let's just talk about this whole drawing thing when they draw for starting positions in the heats, which ends up determining the redraw, and then somehow conveniently getting into the feature. So, and I know this has been going on for decades now, going to the original Fast Freddie Raymer. This is a little bit of a rant. Well, Freddie Raymer Jr. in the number 8 sprint car conveniently draws the pole for first night at Lincoln Speedway. There's no time trials, so doesn't mean anything. He can't really time trial, so let's just do a draw. Somehow he ends up in the pole. Okay. Of his heat. And wins his heat. 3 go to redraw on all the heats. It's 3 heats, top 3 go to the redraw for the feature to pick whoever's going to start the starting lineup with the top 9 of the feature race. Somehow Freddie ends up drawing the number 2. Oh, okay, so he's not pole, but he's still freaking front row. And I mean, if you start on the first couple rows, you're almost guaranteed to win. I mean, he's not a terrible driver, but I mean, shoot, anybody can freaking race coming from the front row and hold off a lead in general. So, surprise, surprise, he ends up winning the opening race at Lincoln Speedway for the Icebreaker. And Sunday's race, starting to look that way, but not for the same Raymer, for a different Raymer. Both Raymers ended up starting the front rows of their heats, conveniently somehow drawing those positions. So, if it's coincidence, they better go freaking draw a lottery ticket then, because that's pretty freaking lucky. But they both make the redraw, obviously. Freddie doesn't get a good pick. Starts 8th, I think. But Brandon Raymer ends up starting on the pole. Yeah. Come on now. Brandon Raymer leads. He gets without completing the first 2 laps fully, he actually gets passed, but a caution comes out conveniently. So everything starts back from scratch, back to 30 laps. And he actually gets the lead and leads first almost half the entire race. And then I'll tell you about a driver who's not PA Posse, but he came into town and he was driving the hell out of his car, was Justin Peck. Very impressive driving. He's run the shit out of that thing. He ran Macri up into the wall after Macri was running other people into the wall. But I guess Brandon wasn't quite lucky to end up winning that race. That car was terrible too. It just wasn't handling. It just I'm not saying if he's a bad driver or not, but it wasn't as he wasn't able to keep that lead. The fresh air didn't really help him at all. Marks had a shot at the end. Brent Marks had a shot at the end. He was no, that might be the one that actually ran into Macri, ran him up the fence, and Macri hit it. And Marks was driving the shit out of it too. So those two were running it. And I thought actually Marks was going to be able to get a run in the last couple laps off of one of the corners, but wasn't quite enough to beat Peck. So Justin Peck is your Icebreaker 30 winner on that Sunday. So that wraps up the racing from this past week. Let's look ahead and kind of see what's coming up here this week. So the World of Outlaws is coming down again to Volusia Speedway this coming Sunday and Monday, the 5th and 6th of March. Getting that kicked off before they head up to Pennsylvania to do some racing against the PA Posse, starting off at Port Royal. Then we'll get into that when that week comes. That's going to be big. Outlaws going again to Volusia, getting used to the new tire setup they have. Had a couple weeks off from the last race. Probably learned quite a bit going into their notebooks and seeing what they got coming into the this coming weekend. It's really anybody's race down there. But I think somebody you've seen show a lot of speed already this year, and I think he's will have a very good year after last couple years there. Weren't sure how he was going to do everything. I think at least one of the races you're going to see Donnie Schatz win. And David Gravel will have a good chance too. He obviously raced very well the last time they were at Volusia. But I think Donnie Schatz will win at one, if not both, races this coming weekend. He might have something figured out this week. Let's lock it in. We'll make it simple. We'll have him sweep this weekend in Volusia, going and have some momentum going up against the PA Posse up there. So lock that in. Tune in this Sunday and Monday, March 5th and 6th for the race down, second race down at Volusia. All-Stars are off until April, so they have a little bit of a break as well. So we're going to just hop right into NASCAR's big three races going to Las Vegas. We'll start with the Truck Series. And there is a certain race car driver that's coming back to race in the trucks and Xfinity this weekend. He just won in the Cup Series. Rowdy. He's racing all three. Gonna go try to do a sweep down at his hometown in Las Vegas. I'm willing to bet. See what I did there? Vegas bet. Yeah, there we go. Moving on. I'm not gonna beat around the bush with it. Kyle Busch will win the truck race on Friday, build momentum going into Saturday. In the Xfinity race, he'll win the Xfinity race too. I'm not really going out on a limb there. I'm not really trying to think it through or anything. You can analyze it all you want, try to go with the regulars, but when it's Kyle Busch's home track in two series that he's absolutely dominated, when he goes on the track, I'm not going to go against him there. So, him for the first two. He was my pick for the 500. He came a week late. But thinking about it, easy pick is to pick him for all three. But I want to shake things up for the Cup race. You'll have the storyline entire Sunday. Oh, can Kyle Busch complete the Las Vegas sweep and win all three series and everything? I think somebody's going to come out there and spoil the fun for him. I think he'll have a solid day. But I've been torn kind of who I wanted to pick for this. The Sunday race, I'm going to go with Logano. I don't have a whole lot of justification. I mean, he's had solid speed this year. Had a solid finish, and Fontana. I mean, he's got a new hairdo, so he's got all the momentum with that. The crew's strong, and he's very good at being aggressive enough, but also patient enough throughout the race to get to the end and show up and end up possibly just driving away from the field at the end. So, yeah, I'll pick Logano to win it on Sunday to spoil the homecoming weekend for Kyle Busch. Well, that pretty much sums it up. We got some big guests coming on the show this week, so stay tuned for that. And these next couple weeks, we're going to have some big guests coming on, so keep hitting that like, subscribe, share it. If you don't like it, don't share it. Just continue to tune in, and let's keep having fun with this. See you guys later.